Welcome to the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real. If you desire to intimately connect with yourself, your significant other, children, family, friends, community, and higher power, this show is for you. We explore intimate topics, inspiring life stories, spirituality, and insightful tips on strengthening relationships. The show is hosted by Dr. April and her co-host, Coach K. Let's get this episode of the Bringing Intimacy Back show started. We share with you today the secret power to intimacy to create a life you love or love the life you create. Now, here's your host, Dr. April, and co-host Coach K.
Welcome to the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real. How are you doing, Coach K?
I am doing amazing. How about yourself?
Good. I'm so happy that November is here and it starts the beginning of the holiday season.
Yep, and it just will go from there. I bought my little stickers for the window to put up for the fall, and
Well, you've actually put things into action. I'm just yes.
Now that makes up for me waiting to the last minute to do Christmas shopping, because I shop on Christmas Eve. So I feel accomplished if I at least put stickers in the window.
Yes, definitely. Yes. So I'm excited about today's show. The topic of today's show is the impact of alcohol on intimacy. And people may be saying, why are we talking about that now? One thing I want to say, we had a guest come on. Well, we were supposed to have a guest, but our guest has decided that they are not able to make it. So it's just going to be you and I, Coach K. But yes. I thought it was a great topic because we're going into the holiday season. And I don't know if you know, but about a third of people drink more during the holiday season.
I can believe it for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah.
It's a stressful time.
Yes, yeah. So they drink because it's stressful. But of course we drink because it's exciting and we're hanging out with family and stuff. So I understand that. But did you also know that about if there's a heavy drinker in a relationship, it destroys the relationship about 50% of the time?
Absolutely. And I'm surprised that statistic isn't higher. And it may be because people are not reporting it, but alcohol, because it's so easily accessed and so easy to go kind of down that rabbit hole of it. Sometimes by the time you turn around, it's like, oh my gosh, what have I done?
Right, exactly. And so for today's show, I want to talk a little bit about how it affects us personally, but also how it affects us in relationships, because many people don't think about that. But before we get into that, one of our nonprofits that we're going to focus on today, or the charity of the month, is the Del Prado Mall Plaza. It's where my office is located in the Cape. Mm-hmm. And because of the hurricane, me and of course about 18 other small business owners are having to get a new roof. And so we're struggling to get the finances for that. So we have a GoFundMe account. And if you're interested in helping out the people in Cape Coral in the sense of providing mental health services, there are hairdressers there. There's a Mexican restaurant that serves great food. There's vacation rentals. There's things for your pets. And there's even things for children, an ABA therapy. So it's for all people, all walks of life.
That is definitely a much needed charity, especially because small businesses provide for families.
Right.
And so having to take out what you're probably not even making right now because of all, the hurricane that just happened, and having to pour that into fixes. So
yes,
it's a good fund to give to.
Yes. And we'll be providing some free support groups for all the people out there that are affected by that. And that's coming up soon.
Nice.
Yes. So I'm excited about that. And so also in talking with you, this is also providing some support for people out there who may be struggling with alcohol or have a partner that struggles with alcohol.
Absolutely. Getting the conversation started, kind of putting it in the forefront without having to bring it up yourself. So that's why I'm super excited about this particular episode, especially going into the holiday season.
Right, right. And people think that, I have to be an alcoholic to get help, or it's not a problem because I don't drink every day,
Mm-hmm.
you know? But I don't know, what I've seen with couples when I work with couples is sometimes alcohol has become like a third party.
Right. That's the mistress or the
Yes.
mistress.
Yes. And so what happens is, and people are like, what does that mean? I don't even understand that concept. But it's like you're with your partner, you're having, and for some reason, whether you're happy, sad, mad, whatever, you go to the alcohol for that emotional shutdown or emotional release or whatever the case, instead of going to your partner.
And the person that's doing the drinking, they're probably not like, oh, it's just me having a drink. I'm sitting with you. We're sitting right here. I'm just having a drink.
Right.
Not understanding from the person that's across from them, well, it feels like you can't relate to me without being infused with something. So
Right.
you can't handle me just on the surface.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I'm not just saying this for people that, just drink, but there's some people who have an addiction to it.
Yes.
Yeah. And they don't realize that it is genetic.
That is such a slippery slope, which is why it is super important to know your history.
Yes.
So important. Sometimes, and this is a little bit off topic, but sometimes, people don't let children know who their fathers are for whatever reason. And that's fine. But at some point, you have to be willing to share that information, because if there's alcoholism in that other side of the family, it is going off to college. And you say, oh, I can, drink with my buddies. And then boom, that gene kicks in and you don't know when to stop, and you spiral and you can't figure out where did it come from. History, genetics.
Right. And Coach K, you make a valid point, because my real father was in the military, and he went to Vietnam War and came back. They sprayed him, and they did a lot of very things back then in the military. But he came back and he had cancer, but he also had a drinking problem. Yes. And this drinking problem started before I was conceived.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So, and I saw it, growing up a little bit. He died when I was 4. But I understood that I have genetically can be predisposed to be an alcoholic. I understand that, or have an addiction. It's really the addiction gene that just pops up there. Right. So if one parent is addicted, it's a 50% chance that a kid would be an offspring. 2 parents, it's an 80% chance. When I learned that statistic, I was like, okay, April, you got to be careful. Yeah. So
it's almost like having proactive measures in place. And I think like I said earlier, in the college setting, having a proactive, maybe even a group of, because you may not know, not a lot are walking in as, oh my gosh, I have this, addiction, but being able to have the resources readily available for the proactive measures versus all of the resources that we have for the reactive measures.
Right. And when you're proactive, you understand your body, and I know someone may be saying, well, without alcohol, how am I going to have fun? How am I going to do anything? Yes. But if you understand your body and you understand the statistics, you can have fun. I mean, I danced my butt off in college. I had extreme. And for me, I'm a little bit of a control freak, so I like to remember everything.
That's a good thing, though.
Yes. So, yeah. And then, I was watching the news the other day, and there's so many, especially in the colleges now, where people are spiking people's drinks.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's friends. that are doing it. When my oldest went off to school, I would always just tell him, be mindful, because it's nothing for your friend who you just met to be paid $150 to make sure that you lose consciousness so that they can make thousands off of trafficking you or whatever it is that they want to do. So being weary of and cautious of your friends, your drink, anything, you just have to be very careful.
Definitely, yes. And now people, well, how does this impact intimacy? Yeah. In so many different ways, number one, even when you're starting to date and be connected with someone, I mean, how can I put it? It makes a difference when it's when you're fully there, and when then there's alcohol involved.
Yeah, because you don't remember things. You say things you may not mean.
Right.
You're just completely oblivious to your surroundings.
Right. Yes.
And sometimes it sounds bad. I'm laughing, but it's bad. Sometimes if alcohol is a crutch, and some people end up married, and it's like, I wasn't fully aware of what was going on. And then maybe they get sober or get help later on. And that's not what they actually wanted to do. They didn't want to actually be together. So false intimacy almost can happen.
Exactly. And you know what? Sometimes people can't perform.
Yes.
On both ends.
Yep. And I know so many people say, buzz sex is amazing. When I'm drunk, but drinking can make your vagina dry.
Right.
It can cause the blood flow to not work, so your penis won't go up or it won't stay up.
Right. Exactly. And it turns out it's really a depressant. Yes, which is why it shuts down everything.
Yeah.
But I don't think, like you said, people realize that.
Not at all. And then it's almost like a cycle. Then you're either embarrassed, upset that it happened. And so you go back to, you take a drink to feel better.
Yeah, because some people sometimes feel like they need a drink to socialize or to talk to a person of interest.
Yeah, instead of using it as just social. And so I know right before we jumped on, you were talking about a gray drinker.
Right.
Because I think that's the first time I've heard of that term. Can you just enlighten us a little bit on kind of what that is?
So a gray drinker is a drinker that drinks and it affects other aspects of their life. So it affects their work, their sex life, their family life, their attitude, their mood, so it may not, and what people out there qualify as an alcoholic, as someone, an alcoholic is not just someone who drinks every day. I mean, you can not drink every day and still be an alcoholic.
Right.
Yes. An alcoholic means it significantly impairs. So a gray drinker it does impact.
So one is more, it does, for both, they're kind of dependency, I guess, driven.
Right.
Would one be more dependency driven than the other?
Well, an alcoholic is usually more dependency driven. Okay. And if you're an alcoholic and you've been drinking for a number of years, one of the things I do want to say, you can't just sometimes just stop. People think, oh, I can just stop. Alcoholic is one of those addictions where if you've been drinking and doing it for so long, your body can get dependent on it. And if you stop, you can have seizures. Yes. So I was doing a retreat once, and it was a couple and they had drinking involved. And the man decided he didn't want to drink anymore. So he stopped for 2 days or whatever. And in session, he went into a seizure. And
That's
he was
scary.
He was a young guy, yes, which is usually doesn't happen at a young person. usually when you're a little bit older. But yeah, it was pretty scary. Yeah, he went into a full-blown, yeah, we had to get 911. Yeah, yeah. And he hadn't drank at all that day, but his body was so dependent on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I know just growing up, I heard that, and I think I watched a dependency show, that just to wake up in the morning, if an alcoholic doesn't drink, they're like shaking, and they just have to have at least a shot to soothe their body down.
Right. So if you're like that, just what you said, if you wake up and you're one of those that have to shake, that means your body is dependent on it. That means you need medical intervention to get off of that. You cannot just get off of that yourself.
So that would make me think, when we think about the intimacy, is that you can't go but a certain point in any relationship without having to dip off to the side, get a little bit of liquid courage, and then come back in. So that is a huge blockage within. And so say both parties are alcoholics.
Right.
One could still feel neglected, right?
Mm-hmm.
Within that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And then the other aspect is that these things have long-term effects, and it also messes with the brain cognitions, and studies have been showing how it can affect, you having children, of course, and that aspect, but also as you get older, there's, dementia that it impacts.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Because I guess it kills some of the brain cells or something.
Right, definitely. Yes. And it causes fogginess up here in your short-term brain. So, which is later on impact and impaired. Yeah. And some impact cannot be reversed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you have your mood swings, which really affects your relationships heavily.
Yes. Because there's some people, as you know, when they drink, they're very exciting, maybe even flirty. And then there's others who want to just, be by themselves.
So I guess with any drug, and people don't really think of alcohol being almost a drug. To me, they're cousins. They're like first cousins.
Right, exactly.
We can just go in a store and purchase alcohol because we're able to tax it, and the government can can regulate it a little bit. But it's so easily accessible. But I've seen where alcoholics would even drink mouthwash if they're not able to get a hold of it.
Right. Because maybe sometimes that's when that body is dependent on it. I need to find it somewhere.
And that has effect on the children and oh, wow. Alcohol is a doozy. I know just from personal experience, and different types of alcohol affect us in different ways.
Yes, that's a good point to make.
Because I know that at one point when we were younger, I've been with my husband, we've been together almost 20 years. So when we were in our 20s, like late 20s, I would notice that if he drank a certain brown alcohol.
You mean like liquor?
Liquor, yeah.
Okay.
His entire demeanor would just be different.
Right.
It just seemed like he turned into almost like the Incredible Hulk.
Right.
And then I noticed that if he drank, because I drink light liquor, like vodkas and things like that. So whenever he would drink what I would drink, his attitude was just totally different. So I'm like, different alcohols affect you completely different. So it's like, if you're in a relationship, it's okay to say those things. And I felt comfortable just saying to my husband, hey, when you drink this, we can't connect. I don't want to love on you. I don't want to be around you. And I don't think that's an easy conversation for many relationships. Someone in their 20s. I'm 20 something years old.
Right.
And I'm grateful that I was, strong enough to have that conversation and that he was receptive to that information. And he does not literally, if I make a drink on an occasion, he may sip it, he won't drink.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow. And you had the ability to have that conversation in such a manner where, and you guys had that trust and bond where it doesn't feel like he's being attacked.
Yeah. That's the important piece. And that's why, in some of the shows we've talked about building your intimacy bank and building that trust bank.
Right.
So when you have those conversations, because that's easily a conversation that the person that's drinking will automatically go into defense mode. Like, you're judging me, you're talking about me, you're saying I'm less than. But for him, it was, oh, I didn't even realize that. And come to think of it, I do feel a little bit different. So thank you for bringing it up. Let's talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in relationships, we don't want to hurt each other's feelings.
Right.
And so we don't have those conversations. And if that was a missed opportunity for me to have that conversation in our 20s, here we are in our 40s, it probably would be to a point where we would either be divorcing, someone would be stepping out, or it would just be volatile. And
right.
I think that's where a lot of relationships end up.
Right. And so if you're out there listening, I guess one of the things we could talk about is, how do you have that conversation with your loved one? Without it seeming like a big intervention or like you're accusing them of something.
The easiest way for me to have that conversation is I made sure I did it at a time that nothing else was going on. Mm-hmm. We were just in chill mode. We were not, I think we maybe was even binge watching one of our shows, maybe on a Saturday morning when we're cleaning up. And it was just, I noticed that when you're drinking this, you seem to come off just a little more aggressive. And I don't think I used the word aggressive. I probably found a softer word, because that is, just so if you're listening, that is a very strong word.
Yes.
So look up synonyms for aggressive, but you were just a little more, is probably what I said, because I'm an emotion person.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel and I asked, how do you feel when you drink it? And that's almost a way of giving your power away and asking the other person to give you their opinion, because now they have the opportunity to think for themselves versus me telling him what I thought.
Right. And I like how you put it on, you said, I feel, this is what I'm thinking. Yes. Mm-hmm. And then you're giving them the opportunity, you're passing the baton for them to say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm feeling. And then you guys were able to compromise.
Yeah. And it wasn't a one-time conversation.
Right.
It's super easy to think, oh my gosh, I had the conversation, this, and then it went right back. So I just left it alone. You can't, in my opinion, that's something, it's not nagging. It's not, you're going to do it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Right.
If I have the conversation today, we're good. And then you go back 5 days later and it happens. I may wait a little while and say, you remember that time when you weren't drinking this and we went to X, Y, and Z? How did you enjoy that? Did it feel, what do you think about that? And then I may talk about a time where, so when we went out and you had this, and I know the next morning you woke up and you weren't feeling all that grand. I really do think that maybe you shouldn't have this particular. And it wasn't, I said, stop drinking altogether. I just made a suggestion. Maybe you shouldn't have this particular type of alcohol.
And the other great thing, I like how you presented is you presented with a positive example first. And then you did, well, this example here was somewhat distressing. Yeah. So they could see the difference.
Right. Because sometimes that's the immediate go-to. When? What do you mean? Give me an example.
Yes. Yes, yeah. So if you're out there listening and you're hearing this, and let's say you are struggling with alcohol, but you don't know if it's really impacting, what should you do?
I think the person that is being impacted, if they are listening, I want them to find that courage
Mm-hmm.
and the strength in vulnerability, not strength as in strong, but just the strength and vulnerability to share how they feel.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do this, this is how I feel.
Okay.
It's probably not the case, and it's probably not what you're trying to do, but this is how I feel. And then ask them, do they share that same feeling? Because
Right.
they may say, I notice that whenever I'm drinking, you go in the room and watch TV.
Right.
And I just thought maybe you were one to watch something else. That just will start an entire conversation. Well, no, I leave out the room because da da da. So just gently open up. And the person who drinks, if you are noticing that your loved one or loved ones are kind of distancing themselves from you, ask them, hey, I noticed that you don't come up here and watch the football game with me like we used to. What's going on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like how you put that. I would also suggest if you were to just self-reflect and think about any arguments or disagreements or confusion that's happened in the last, few weeks, and how has that been impacted by the level of drinking? Yeah.
Yeah. And think about the performance. Let's just talk about it.
Oh,
Sex
yeah, the sexual
changes.
performance. Yes, yes. Yes, yeah. If for some reason, from starting from the man's perspective, if you feel like you're struggling getting it up and you're like, wow, I just had a great night with my partner. And we just did this and that, and we danced and we did all this 50 million stuff. And maybe you drank a lot and now I can't perform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And instead of just, and it's okay to be embarrassed. I
Right.
think that that's natural. Please be inside of all of your feelings.
Yes, exactly.
But at some point, open up that conversation with your partner. I know that we had a good time. We came home and I know that you wanted to get it in and I was not able to. Let's talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
How did that make you feel? Because I don't want to ever not satisfy you. So I want to make sure that we are doing everything to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Right. Right. And having that conversation can sometimes also, like you said, bring couples together so they can keep each other accountable.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Because if my husband were to tell me, if you see me going to buy XYZ, stop me. Every single time I will stop him. And even if he bought it and bought it home, I'm going to give you the look like, you're going to feel it tomorrow.
Right.
But the next time you go to buy it, I'm going to do the same thing. Hey, maybe you shouldn't get that because eventually you won't get it for yourself versus you not getting it for me.
Right.
If that makes sense.
That makes sense. Yeah. And for the females out there who just sometimes drink and mix and totally miss the whole sexual experience, I know so many women who sometimes just lay there or just, yeah.
Yeah. And especially if you feel like if it's super painful because you feel like your vagina is just dry, you may not, may not want to use lubrication or whatever the case may be. First, of course, always consult your doctor.
Right.
Speak with them, and they may even tell you, they may ask you, which is why on doctors' forms, they ask you, do you smoke and do you drink?
Right.
And how often?
Right.
Because that is going to affect your body.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And it also makes you very sometimes dehydrated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, of course, on the mental health aspect, if you're on any type of medication, many of these medications, you cannot take a pill and drink.
Right.
It has devastating impacts. So you have to kind of understand your medication and understand its impact on alcohol, or alcohol's impact on your medication and yourself. So definitely. So for people out there who are like, well, what can I do? What kind of help is there? Well, there's so much help out there. One common thing that most people think of is AA. Yes, and people think of, well, I'm not going to AA. AA is just for, I don't know. I get all the stuff that it's for losers or whatever, but AA is for people just like us.
Mm-hmm.
They have all walks of life. And
even proactive measures there.
Yes, there are a lot of proactive measures. And AA, it's offered almost anytime. There's a thing out there, but it's also, how can I put it? You go there, you get support. You don't have to say anything, but you get resources, you get information.
Mm-hmm.
And for anybody who's out there listening and say, well, I tried AA and I didn't like that group. Every AA group is different.
Yep.
Yeah. You may have to find one that's only women, or women in a certain field, or men, or co-ed. Yes. But it does provide support, because in everything, I think this world, we need support.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And getting support from people who can understand what's going on is helpful.
Yes. And then, of course, there's support for spouses who are partners, who have partners who drink, and that's called Al-Anon. And there are resources out there. And there's, of course, support for children or teens whose parents who have struggles with alcohol. So definitely, that is one good resource to think about. And then the other resource is Samsung, which is a very good organization that samhsa.gov, which provides a lot of therapy services for people who struggle with any type of addiction.
And just remembering that it's ongoing. There's no quick fix. You're not broken.
Right.
You're human. So being able to have those conversations and knowing that you're not obligated to share, you can just go and listen and absorb.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's free resources out there. And one of the things we want to really stress, this is in your relationship. It's best to talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. A team of people helping you is so much better than just you trying to do it on your own.
Yep.
Yes, definitely. So I'm glad we had this conversation. And so hopefully the couples will have this conversation because the holidays is coming up and we want people to have fun and be safe. Yes. And if you're out there and let's say you have fun and you've been drinking, please, please, please don't drink and drive.
Absolutely.
Yes. There's Ubers and all other kind of things where you could get home safely.
Or just stay at the in-laws' house. Stay where you are.
Stay where you are. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yes, yes, yes. Well, we'll be back in a moment.
Jamaica, Paradise Island in the Caribbean. Discover quiet waterfront treasures just mere steps away from paradise. Enjoy true Jamaican specialties, live reggae music, hotter than Hade's spiced jerk pork, and chicken sold from beachside vendors. Join vacation counseling in Jamaica on February 12th through the 15th. Surprise your Valentine with a sun-kissed, relaxing, romantic getaway to Portland, Jamaica. What are you waiting for?
Welcome back to the Bringing Intimacy Show, where intimacy is real. Wow, so that was a good show. Yes.
Absolutely. And just in time for the holidays.
Yes. So what other guests do we have coming up?
All right. We have some amazing shows coming up. So on next week, November the 10th, we have Michael Magrucci with Reconnecting to Our Humanity. On November the 17th, we have Rachel McLeod with Hunting for Symptoms That Leads to Your Next Level Up. And then on November the 24th, we are going to get ready to have an amazing holiday. So we won't be here.
Yes. Yes. We may do a replay of another show, but we will not be live. We'll be enjoying our Thanksgiving holiday season. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, if you're out there listening and you really like what we talk about, please follow us and support us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, on Clubhouse. There's anything what else. Or just go to the bringingintimacyback.com show and leave us a feedback. This has been the Bringing Intimacy Back show, and we'll see you guys next week.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Bringing Intimacy Back, where intimacy is real. You can also find us at bringingintimacyback.com, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Dr. April Brown's 7th book series, Improving Intimacy, is now on Amazon. We'll see you next Thursday at 3:30 p.m. Don't forget to follow, share, and subscribe.